In this lesson, we are going to talk about how to set up our classes so that we have our fields, we have our methods, and we have our new method, the constructor, to create our new classes and our new objects. Let's get into how we do this. So I have my dog class and my kennel class from the previous lesson. And I've created instantiated a dog Fido here, but it doesn't do anything yet. So now I need to build my dog class so that when I create Fido, something actually happens. Let's talk about this. The first thing we need to do is we need to create some fields. Now, fields are those parts of an object that are its global things that are accessible all the way through the object. And because we're going to declare them right after the curly brace at the top of our class, we need to make sure that no other class can access this. And this is part of what is called data encapsulation. We want to make sure that only the dog can access and manipulate dog information. So we're going to use a new keyword called private. And private means that only this class, only the dog class, can access the information that is after this private. We can have private fields, we can even have private methods if we need to. But we're going to use private fields. All fields within our classes should be private. This is an important keyword, especially for the AP exam. All fields need to be private. So we're going to declare private integer, and we're going to declare integer age. For this example, I'm only going to give one field. This way we can keep it simple, but our one example is going to apply to all fields and all different data types. So private int age is the age of Fido. Now we want to create Fido, and we want to give Fido an age. And when we create a new field, because we've said private, we need to give other classes the ability to get access to it. What if the kennel needs to know Fido's age? And that's where we're going to have what are called accessor and mutator methods. Accessor methods are sometimes called get methods, and mutator methods are sometimes called set methods. And there's a particular way that we write these methods within the class, and that's where their setter and getter names come from. So down here, a little bit lower in the class, I'm going to go ahead and write a getter method. So my getter method, I'm going to write public, because this is going to be a public method, and it's going to return an integer, and it's going to be called get, and then camel case age. And this is where the terms getters and setters come from. So it's get age. Generally, you type get and then a capital version of whatever your field is. So get age in this case. And I'm going to return, recall that return statement that we talked about previously. I'm going to return the age. And it's simply going to send back to whoever calls this public int get age method. It's going to send back the age. Now, this does seem a little bit redundant, but we might have some checks in there. There might be some things that we want to do to age in the future to protect age or to make sure that it's the right value before we send it out. And more importantly, when we create a setter, we definitely want to do that. So we're going to create a public void, because we don't need to return anything when we set an age, and we're going to call it set age. So public void set age, we're going to take in an argument of an integer type age. Or actually, let's call it, we'll just call it A for the moment, for age. So now we take in an integer A, let me go ahead and move these down here, give myself a little bit more space. So we've taken in int a. Now this is where setters and getters get really important, is data protection. So if I have the int a for the age of a dog, someone might accidentally put in a negative number there. And we want to make sure that we are putting in an appropriate number. Now we're just going to do a simple check for negative age, but we might be able to do a more complex check for integers within a certain range. But be careful about that because there might be a dog that gets really old, right? And we don't want to accidentally kick out bad information. So data protection is important, but you also have to make sure that your data protection is valid. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of data protection. So if we're going to create an if statement in here, if our a is greater than or equal to 0, because a dog might be a newborn, it might be 0 age, then we can say that our age field from above will get the value of a. Very simple data protection. We could make it much more complex if we need to, but in this way we protect and make sure that the age is at least not a negative value. Okay, so we have now set up our age field. We have an accessor and a mutator. And now we need to create our dog. And creating our dog, we're going to use what is called a constructor. A constructor is, think of it like a special kind of method. It only gets called once when we create our field, or when we create our object. And remember, the object is going to be Fido. When we create it, we are going to be calling this constructor. And we're going to get more into how to create more complex constructors later, but we're going to create our constructor. So it's going to be public. Let me go ahead and move some of this around so it's a little bit more obvious where our indentation is. And this will be on the same level. Okay, so now we've got our public. And all that we need to do then is write the name of the class exactly as we see it. Public dog. And then we're going to have our parentheses just like a method. And in this case, we are going to take in an argument, integer, and we'll call it a for age. So we can take in any arguments we want, open parentheses, just like a regular method. And here is my constructor. So this is a constructor. And this is my accessor. And this is my mutator. Okay, so in my constructor, generally speaking, we also want to protect our data. So we have this int a for age, and we could do like we did below. We could rewrite this, but we've already written the code. And recall that we want to do dry coding. We don't want to repeat ourselves. So the easiest way to do this is to say set age and pass in a. And now this constructor will call our mutator method. It will check if a is greater than 0. And if it is, then it will go ahead and change a for us. This way we can construct and build our method, or build our object rather, using methods, using our constructor, and we can protect that data. Ideally, every single field in your class should be initialized, should be given a value in your constructors. There should be no fields that are left blank. You might have some constructors that don't use information, but you as the programmer need to set flags or somehow create the data so that you know that every single piece, every single field has been initialized in some way. We'll get into how to do that a little bit more complexly later. Right now, it's very simple, and we're just going to do this. Now, let's jump over to our kennel.java file. And over here, we are now going to change our dog. So our dog is now going to have a new value. So we'll go ahead and put the value of, say, 5. So Fido is now going to get the value 5. And we can call that method. One thing to note is that the new value here calls the constructor. So this is what tells Java, hey, we're creating a new object, and it's actually really the pair of these here that call the constructor so that it knows what to do when building that object. Now, later on in our code, we could write Fido.getAge. And this will return a value for us, and we could even save this somewhere. We could say int, I don't know, dog age. Gets the value from our Fido.getAge, and we can now save that and use that information within our kennel class. Now we're able to pass information from one file to the other. And really, it's not one file, it's one object. The class just defines what it is. And I could create another dog. I could create another dog, let's say Yeller, right? And we could give new dog, and Yeller could have an age of 7. And now we've got 2 dogs, 1 Fido, 1 Yeller, each defined by our dog class over here. This is how we begin to write our classes and use objects that we have defined within Java. All right, I will see you guys in the next lesson.